Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people who I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment, and today I'm very happy to have with me award-winning singer-songwriter, session guitarist, Mr. Bernie Labarge. Welcome to the show, Bernie.
Thanks a lot, Tommy. Nice to be here.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. So, I know that you have been involved with a lot of high-profile acts. You've played with a lot of top-shelf players. You're an award-winning artist, and you've had a huge single, Dream Away in 1981 and so on, and your career has seen a lot of highs, but somewhere along the line you got interested in playing. What inspired you to get into music in the first place, Bernie?
Oh, it's nothing out of the ordinary, Tommy. I'm old enough to remember seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan's show, and that was enough for me to really want to approach playing the guitar. I saw George Harrison, and I went, I'd like to be that guy. And then, my family was a musical family. We had lots of records and music in the house, nothing professional, but there was a piano in the house. My mom and dad both have great voices and very good taste in music. And there was always music around. So I definitely was leaning towards that. And then George just kind of put the topping on it. And I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life when I was 11.
So you started actually playing guitar at 11. Did you have your own guitar then?
I started my lessons. Yeah,
Okay.
I just started taking lessons at 11. Yeah, I got my K acoustic guitar and took about, maybe 6 months worth of lessons. And then the Mel Bay guitar course, I think I was in grade 3 or 4 in the course. And it was the songs in it were too lame for what I was looking for. They were polka tunes or things like that. It was good for learning how to read notes, but I wanted to play as soon as Satisfaction came out and all that kind of stuff. It was nah, I think I'll try to take it from here. And that was it. I stopped taking lessons, and the rest of my life was spent learning by ear.
I know what you mean. I didn't even take music class in high school because I just didn't.
When I went to high school, there was you couldn't play guitar or anything anyway. It was just horns and drums. That was about it back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
There's not very many music classes in school anymore, so that's too bad. But so your career,
that's a bummer. Yeah, okay.
Your career basically got started in around 1967. So
it did,
who got you into the professional side of it?
Well, I was playing in a basement band in Burlington, and I went to school with a guy named Johnny Johnson, and we're still best friends till the day we die. And he was kind of like a star amongst the kids in the school because he was doing TV commercials. His dad, Bernard Johnson, was an opera singer. He had his own CBC TV show way back when, and that kind of stuff. So he was a celebrity in Burlington. So his kids, a couple of the kids did commercials and stuff. So Johnny was like this guy, right? So he would show up occasionally for class because he was always away from class. So I would help him with his homework and we became good friends and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Johnny ended up joining a band and it was called the Royal Bank, Banke. And I went and saw him play. He was absolutely amazing. He had this tenor voice. He sounded like a girl. He could do all the girl songs that wrote then, like Jefferson Airplane stuff and all that. So he was a great rhythm player and the band was fantastic. So anyway, I was playing in this basement band and I guess wind had gotten around or word had gotten around that I was a good player or something. And Johnny came down to our basement rehearsal and then liked what he heard. And he told the manager of the band that he liked me, and they were having issues with their lead guitar player at the time, which was fortunate for me. So as he left, I took the place, and the Royal Bank we were kind of big shots in Burlington, even though we were very young and stuff. It was a really good band. And we got, an agent, and we did actual gigs and stuff like that and toured around Ontario and whatever. And so that's what I consider to be professional because I actually got paid. It might have been $10, but at least I was on the road, getting dressed up in stage clothes and playing 3 sets and, that kind of stuff. So I consider that my first foray into the professional world. So that's how that started with Johnny Johnson.
Well, that's pretty cool. Very serendipitous.
Yeah.
So
Very
ultimately,
much so.
you ended up signing with WIA, Warner Electra and Atlantic.
That's a lot of water under the bridge before me meeting Johnny and me signing with We, I'll tell you. But yes, that's true.
Yeah, and so
A
then,
lot of play in the bars. Yeah.
yeah, well, and that's back in the day, and I actually did a series called Rock and Roll Stories from the Bar because that was really where a lot of us cut our teeth and tightened up and then
So you
developed our
could play 6
chops.
nights a week back then. I did that for 10 years, 50 weeks a year.
Yeah, and then there were a lot of gigs too. Like I can remember playing in places like Thunder Bay where you were booked for 2 or 3 weeks solid in the same place. So playing in the bars 6 nights a week back in the day was an ample opportunity for guys like us to sharpen our skills, that's for sure. There was a lot of water under the bridge for you before you
Yep.
signed. Now,
Oh, yeah.
how did you get signed with Warner? Was it through somebody who knew somebody or?
No, I went around knocking on doors. I made a bunch of demos, and I was doing about 1977 or 8. I got a phone call from a friend of mine named Paul Benton, who I had played with a few times in Hamilton. I was living in Toronto at the time, and he called me up, and he was becoming the musical director for a television show called Smith and Smith, which was filmed at CHCH in Hamilton. And the Smith and Smith people were Steve Smith and Morag Smith, husband and wife, and Steve is now known as Red Green. So the Smith and Smith show was a series, and Paul asked me to be the guitar player on the series right out of the blue. Like I was broke in Toronto, just like trying to get work. I hadn't been in Toronto for very long at all. So I left Hamilton, and then I ended up getting a gig in Hamilton when I moved to Toronto. So that's the way it works. I ended up on that show, and it was recorded. The music was recorded at Grand Avenue Studio in Hamilton, and the Lanois brothers, Danny and his brother Bob, God love him, they owned the studio along with Bob Deutsch. And so that's how I met Danny Lanois. And then as that show progressed, I had been writing, and I'd been doing some demos and stuff, and I'd been playing them for Danny. I'd been doing demos in Toronto, and then I played some for Danny, and then Danny said, I'm thinking of getting into production. Imagine Daniel Lanois saying that to me. So he didn't even know what he was up to. So he was just starting. So he says, I'm thinking of getting into production, and I'm going to come over to your place and play me what you got. So I had some stuff, and I sat in front of my Wurlitzer piano. I wasn't even at the guitar, so I sat and played him a couple of tunes, and he liked them. And so he took me under his wing, and Danny and I did maybe 12 or 15 demos together. So we got a package together, and then I started knocking on doors with this package, and the envelope ended up, at WIA as well as every other place. And I got a call from Jim Campbell, who was the A&R guy there. I went in, sweating bullets, and talked to him, played him some more stuff. So they signed me for a single. And then that's how Dream Away happened. There you go.
Yeah, and that song was a big hit for you in 1981. It's still played
81.
on radio today. And
I still hear it occasionally. Yes, I do.
Very easy to find on YouTube as well. So
absolutely, and thank goodness for the internet. Yes. The checks aren't as big as they used to be, but nonetheless, it's had a lot of legs, that song.
yeah, that's a whole other conversation about how unfair the remuneration system is in the digital streaming world, I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be like a Bob Dylan or a Bruce Springsteen where you could just sell your catalog and retire on that. But meanwhile, the rest of us are hoping we get a check big enough to buy some craft dinner this month. Yeah.
Definitely, but that's what you get for not being Bob Dylan or Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I guess so. We should have worked a little harder, got some more plastic surgery, and worked out some more.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually had another guitar player tell me and I was in pretty good shape. I've been an avid martial artist for most of my life, but he says you should pump your arms up more. And I'm like, why? Why would I do that?
What was the reason? Why did he want that?
He's an eccentric guy. I think he just thought that I would be more successful if I was more buff. I don't know. And
Holy moly! I wish it was that
Yeah,
simple.
and
Yeah, no, that's not true.
I figure that, most of us are as successful as we want to be. And if I really, really, really wanted to pound the pavement and so on, then I could have been more successful. But, we live our lives and we are who we are. And I think that everything that's happened to all of us has taken us to where we are today. And hopefully that's a happy place.
That is a martial arts thing that you're talking about there. That's part of your philosophy, I would imagine, because I don't think like that, but that's how you think. And I think hard work doesn't even pay off sometimes, and sometimes it lands in your lap. But it does help to have some talent, not as much these days. It's not that necessary with the advent of laptop computers and Pro Tools, but it's back then, like, you might get signed, but you had to prove yourself. Like, once you're on the big stage, you only get, every time you're on stage, it's your first and last shot. I mean, like, you have to prove yourself every time you play. Like, there's never a time when you can just relax and phone it in. At least that never happened to me.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, and when I say you're as successful as you want to be, I also take that from a different angle. If you're going to play a gig in front of people,
yes.
You better be rehearsed and you better be polished, because nobody wants to see you forget the words to Mustang Sally and trip over the guitar solo from what Stormy Monday or whatever. People, if you're going to be singing the blues, you better have the blues and your band better be tight.
Yes. Now, on the other hand, there does come a point when you're a big star, and just the fact you're in the building is a very good start, for you in the crowd, because they're already on your side. You're not having to sell yourself. So there is that part. But, it doesn't, like, you'll hear after you've gone to a concert with a big star, there will be people that are going, man, that just blew my mind. And there's other people going, I've seen that guy 13 times and this wasn't so hot, so it's all of that as well. But charisma and stuff like that definitely comes into play if you're, like, say you went to see somebody that you absolutely loved and he had cold, or like if you went to see Jeff Beck and he had just sprained his finger or something like that, you'd give him a break, because you know how great he is. But if it was, some guy you'd never seen before who showed up with a sprained finger and didn't sound so good on guitar, you would just think that guy wasn't very good.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually broke my pinky on my fretting hand probably 10 years ago.
Ooh. I don't use mine, so that wouldn't matter.
Well, this was, I was actually sparring and I broke it and dislocated it. And at that time, I was just playing for a living. I wasn't doing anything else. So I couldn't.
That stinks.
I couldn't just stop, but I thought, there's no way I'm going to go out there with just my two fingers and mess that up. So I actually hired another guitar player to play all the rhythm. And then I played two finger solos on lead guitar and I sang lead vocals to get through the gigs. But, my thing was, there's no way I'm going to go out there and fumble all over my guitar because I can't do it right. And I realized I could solo with two fingers and keep it simple, but I wasn't able to play anything else. So I'm not going to do this and make myself look stupid and make the people leave. I mean,
this would be like, when I was doing session work and, like I would be called in to play all the parts that his pinky finger would have played. And I would have to nail it.
Yeah, so that's another thing I wanted to ask you about. How did you get into session work?
That was like the same thing, knocking on doors and sending tapes around. Like, a good friend of mine, his name is Johnny Rutledge, not Johnny Johnson, but Johnny Rutledge, who is one of the best singers that ever came out of this country. And he lives in Chicago now, but he just fantastic singer and ran a Django company in Chicago for years. So, and a superb guitar player. So when I was playing in bars in the 70s, Johnny was playing in bars in the 70s too. He was in a band called Shadowfax, and they were just fantastic. So anyway, Johnny, I started hearing him on the radio. Like, his voice was very recognizable to me. So heard him on the radio, and I phoned him up. I went, "Hey, Johnny," and I heard you singing a jingle for a beer company or something. And he went, "Yeah." So, and I went, "Well, I've been doing some jingles. I was doing jingles at Grand Avenue Studio with Daniel Lanois, as well as my demos and stuff. Like I was doing a lot of car commercials and local ads, regional ads. So I had like 50 of them on tape. And I told Johnny, I had some stuff. And how did you end up doing jingles in Toronto? And he went, "Well, here's a list of like 50 different jingle companies in Toronto." So I looked them all up and made 50 copies of my best of my car commercials and stuff and sent them off to them. And that was it. And the phone rang one day. And that was the funniest story right there. Like, very first time I get called for a jingle in Toronto. It was like unbelievable. My hands are shaking and everything. So it's this jingle company, and they go, "So we heard your tape. Sounds good. Do you want to do a jingle tomorrow?" And I went, "Yeah." And they went, "Do you play classical guitar?" And I went, "This is one of the hardest things I'm ever going to have to say, but because you're the first person that's ever phoned me to do a jingle in Toronto, but I don't want my first session in Toronto to be me playing classical guitar because that's not really my strong point. So I'm going to have to say no." So fortunately, I think they appreciated my honesty, and I got a call from them, the next week to come in and play some electric and whatever. So everything started from there, and very, very, very slowly. There's so many stories I could tell you, Tommy, about like these. They're serendipitous in hindsight, but there was a lot of work involved at the time. Like, so just from playing around with different bands, playing the odd jingle and things like that, my name was getting around in Toronto, and I was also singing the odd jingle and whatever. So I connected with Jack Richardson, producer for the Guess Who and Canada's first famous producer.
Yeah, I
got hooked up with Jack. Yeah,
he's from London here.
He is from London.
Yeah,
and so I started working with Jack, and Jack, his engineer was Dave Green, and I ended up doing a bunch of records, like session work with Jack, playing on other people's records. And so because of that, Jack and Dave Green were friends with a guy named Don Gillis, who was going to be the musical director for this new Jim Henson show called Fraggle Rock, which was going to be starting to get done in Toronto. So I get this call to audition for this new Jim Henson show called Fraggle Rock. And I know this is a huge thing. So I had to audition. There was, probably 50 or 60 guys who probably had to audition for it, I think. There was at least 2 anyway. So I ended up getting the audition and doing the Fraggle Rock show. So I forget what your original question was, but it has something to do with just things showing up. But I was prepared for it because of all the legwork I'd done. So this goes back to the being prepared. It wasn't like I knew what songs they were playing, but I was prepared for the pressure. I was prepared for working on my feet, like just pulling things out of the air, when people asked me to play a solo. And, so like it was like, you had your antenna up 100% of the time when you were doing this. And I loved every second of it. So,
yeah, you didn't find your success by sitting at home in the basement. You're a very hardworking guy. You knocked on doors, sent out resumes, and pounded the pavement as much as you possibly could.
Well, that's how it worked for me anyway. Yes, yeah. I did it from the bottom rung, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's kind of reminiscent of the Domenic Troiano story. He was one of those guys who started out young as well, and his name was getting around Toronto, and that led to everything else. Now, I know you've shared stages with people like Domenic Troiano, Ronnie Hawkins, John Kay from Steppenwolf, John Sebastian, David Cassidy, Alex Lifeson, obviously with the Dexters. And you've played guitar with and fronted a lot of acts, including Rain, Sweet Blindness, Cassandra Vasic, the Dexters, the George Oliver Band. Now, these two, the Irish Rovers, and Zwall. Now, I know Zwall. He's a really, really nice guy, real sweetheart.
Yes, did you do a show with him yet?
I've interviewed Zwall, and he was part of my Christmas special as well.
Good.
Wally is a great guy.
Wally's great. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm particularly curious about the Irish Rovers.
Uh-huh.
So was that session work, or did you actually play live with them as well?
I played live with them for 8 years, as well as doing everything else in between. But so, like, I wasn't just on tour with them. Like, there were like 3 tours a year. But I started out this as another Jack Richardson thing. So I was playing on some Irish Rovers albums because Jack produced Wasn't At a Party and whatever. So, and their albums, back from Wasn't At a Party on. So let's see, how did that work? They were doing a TV series in Toronto, and I got the call to play guitar on that show. So I was the electric guitar player on the show, and Michael Krieber was the piano player on the show, and he was also in their live touring band. And so we did the show for maybe 1 or 2 seasons, and then Michael Krieber phoned me from Vancouver one day. I was living in Stouffville, I think, at the time, and said he was thinking of leaving the Rovers and joining this band with a girl singer, and her name was Katie Lang. So would I be interested in taking his place in the Rovers? And I said, well, you're the piano player. I play guitar. He said, I think you'll be able to cut it. I think they'll be okay with this. So anyway, that's what happened. So they ended up replacing Mike Krieber with me. And I was, like I said, I was on the road with them for 8 years and never laughed so hard in my life. And they treated me like gold, and I played some incredible places.
Yeah, you are the epitome of a true professional when it comes to playing, because it doesn't seem to me like you are adverse to playing any particular style. And I can tell you from my own experience, I used to host a St. Patrick's Day show here in London at a very popular pub for a number of years. And for me, every year I had to relearn all the Irish and Celtic songs because they were just so challenging. And,
Definitely.
My hat's off to you for being able to do that as a regular gig, because those are weird time signatures, and it's fun to listen to, and for a lot of guys it's torture to try and play.
Yeah, it was at first, but they were very very giving, and and I ended up with them, like I said, for 8 years, and we played great, and I loved playing those tunes because, like you said, they sound simple when you're sitting in the audience tapping your foot, but there's a lot of weirdness going on in them. And I played acoustic 99% of the time in that band. I only played electric for the solo when Wasn't At a Party. So I got my strumming chops together because it is like rhythm guitar city when you're playing those songs, right? Tempos are nice and fast and lots of fast chord changes and stuff. It was really a lot of fun. And those guys, as people, they don't come any better than that. Excellent guys.
It's always nice when you can get along with the guys in the band. Yeah.
That's what I strive to do all the time.
Yeah, I think
that's why I was in 17 bands. As soon as I would see any friction or wasn't improving, I would just start looking for something else.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge that a lot of us face, and I had a hard time when I started out playing on the road, because being a kid from a small town, all of a sudden you're in Toronto, and then you find out that everybody in the band is an idiot but you. At least from your own perspective, and they're all thinking that you're the idiot, and it just,
that's the beauty of it.
And when you're living with all these people in the van for so many hours at a time, how many times did we drove from Brampton one night? We were playing at the old Place Royale, and we had to drive from Brampton to Thunder Bay overnight.
Beautiful.
So that we could get to Thunder Bay in time to set up for our sound check Sunday afternoon before the dinner crowd. Yeah.
Ay, caramba. You probably didn't even stop for a pee at that point. That's a long drive.
Hardly a stop for anything.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That was 22-hour drive. Oh, my goodness. That's a brutal story.
Yeah, and it's not even that uncommon a story. I talked to a lot of other guys that quit the business for a while because of it,
Well, Thunder Bay, yes, it separated the boys from the men and the women, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that was a long time to be in a van. There's no doubt about that. But they like driving there, setting up and playing. That's brutal. Been there before, and that's a young person's game.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it certainly is. So It's nice that there are places that you can play these days where it doesn't go so late. There's different gigs like festivals and soft theaters a lot
Yes,
of
I
times.
know. I remember saying that to the Dexters, right? I was so far ahead of my time, like 10 years ago, like saying to them, our crowd is like, they're not getting any younger. I mean, there are young kids in the crowd, but like people that know us as guys that want to come see us play, like, why don't we play a 9 to 1 or 8 to 12 or something, right? And nobody would go for it because it's hard to sell beer after the band's gone, right? So they would have had to go, like we'd play 8 till, if we did it, which it never happened, but say if we played 8 till 12, they'd have to get a DJ or something, which wouldn't be impossible. That was my suggestion. You don't need 2 bands or anything. It just, because everybody's drunk by then and the young kids are there and they like DJs anyway. So that was my suggestion, but it never worked. And now, everybody's playing 7 till 11 now. And it's like, oh, I decided to retire at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's just so it's weird how it has taken so long for things to turn around because that always made sense.
Who the heck wants to be playing at 2 o'clock in the morning? I know.
Yeah, and especially if you have to drive for 2 hours to get home.
Well, exactly, and the same with the crowd. Like why do they want to drive drunk at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to work the next day? Like it's impossible.
Yeah, the best New Year's Eve gig I ever had was probably around 10, 11 years ago. Got a call to play in Harrow, Ontario, on the main street, and it was on a flatbed stage with the salamander heaters, and it was great because they dropped the ball at 10:15.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, so then we were done
in Harrow, like just outside of Amherstburg.
Yeah, it's near Windsor, and for our American friends, close to Detroit.
I love Harrow. I know exactly. Tornado City.
Yeah, boy, right in Tornado Alley, that's for sure.
For sure.
We were done by 10:30 that night, and
that's ridiculous.
I was back home on my couch with a beer by about 12:30, on New Year's Eve.
That's insane.
Yeah, and to think that all the years before that, there's no way you're getting home anywhere near that time, so...
Not if you're playing New Year's Eve. I mean, that's like a joke that you just told me. You're playing a New Year's Eve gig and it ended early. Like it's like my dad used to say, phone up the church and ask them what time midnight mass is at. It's like that kind of joke, right? Yeah.
Can we do it early this year? The old man's got a hangover. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Boy. Like, what time is the New Year's Eve gig? Well, what time? It's probably at midnight. But no, this is at 10:30. What? Yeah. We can do 2 gigs then.
Yeah, well,
that's what we would have been doing. We would have been looking for another gig like within 90 minutes of Arrow to get another $50.
See what's doing in Kingsville. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's see what's up in Kingsville.
Yeah. Maybe they fired the band at 10. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. The Mecca, the music Mecca of Canada for sure. Kingsville, Ontario.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, were you ever a member of the Hawks, Ronnie Hawkins' band?
No, like I never played with the Hawks. No, Ronnie, I was in a band called Kearney, King, McBride, and Labarge. We couldn't decide on a band name, so we named it after the 4 guys that were up front. And we used to play downstairs at the old Elma Combo. Ronnie Hawkins was a friend with some of the guys in the band. This is when I was doing Toronto too. So Ronnie came up, sang a couple of tunes for us once, and that was it. No, I never played with Ronnie.
So you're one of the very few guitar players in Toronto who hasn't played in the Hawks.
Apparently so. I remember that was one of those gigs that a lot of guys went through. No, I guess I was in some other bands back then, but no, I never even got a phone call from them.
And likewise, I think I'm the only guitarist in London who's never played in Helix, so... Anyway, it is what it is, man. So listen, Bernie, this has been great fun. I want to thank...
Don't tell me this is over, is it?
Well, it doesn't have to be over.
Let's do part 2 now. I just had a coffee.
Oh, you've had your second cup of coffee. Awesome.
I have had my second cup of coffee, but no, it's been nothing but my pleasure there, Tommy.
So I will ask you
to do it again sometime.
I'll ask you one more thing. Okay.
Yes.
The world is a turbulent place to be in these days. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on. That's we're all kind of at our wits' end to a certain point, and we're really COVID fatigued and so on. Is there something that you particularly feel passionate about that you would like to hit on here?
You know, it's funny. I woke up this morning and I was hoping that you'd ask me that question, and I've since forgotten what my profound answer was when I was half asleep. But I would just like it to be a bit more peaceful, and I wish that all the mean people that came out from under the rocks when Donald Trump showed up would go back underneath them, because I found a lot of weird things out there since 2015. And so I would say, just if you're somebody that listens to the news and you get overly concerned, turn it off for a while, because you've got to realize that none of this is in your control. Like you just have your little world, and if you could be nice to somebody, make them happy, that's about all we can do. Like, the big players are the people that are making all the trouble. It's not us, and we can't sweat it. And it's easy for me to say because I get in a funk too because of this, but it really is something we have no control over. So we just need to put out good vibes and hope for the best.
We have a unique way of doing that, and we always have to remember that
yes, we certainly do.
Music is the doctor.
Yeah, that certainly helps. And yeah, exactly. Well, God love him. Oh, there's my doorbell. Perfect timing.
Well, listen, Bernie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, and until next time, cheers.
And cheers to you, Tommy, and best of luck with your show, and I can't wait to hear it. You take care now.
Well, that certainly was a pleasant conversation. Bernie Labarge is quite the gentleman, and he is quite the awesome talent, not only as a guitarist, although he made his living playing guitar for other people for most of his career. He is an awesome singer and songwriter as well. His single, Dream Away, was released in 1981, and then it was part of his Bargin' In album from 1984. And you can get all of his music and merch on his website, bernielabarge.com. Now here he is, singing lead vocals and playing guitar on his single, Dream Away. Enjoy.
So you think you got me shaking, thought you had me all the time. Someone's heart will soon be breaking, but I know it won't be mine. Seems I hardly can remember what you really were about. I was sure we'd be together, but you never did find out. But I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. Forever, though I wish it were that way. People change just like the weather, and you are my sunny day. But I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. Yeah, I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. Oh, I can dream on, baby. you've had me all the time. Someone's heart will soon be breaking, and you know that heart is mine. But I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. Oh, I can dream away while you slip away. I can dream away. Oh, I can dream on, baby. I can dream on, girl. Oh, I can dream about you, baby. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, I can dream on. I can.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including guest acquisition, recording, editing, and so on. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe and help support us through Patreon at patreon.com/TommySolo. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn. All rights reserved. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and until next time, cheers.